welcome to my channel, Haylee Marie Vintage. Today is my 6,000 subscriber Q&A celebration, so that is what we'll be doing. I know this video isn't for everybody, not everyone likes chatty videos, so if that isn't your cup of tea, you don't have to watch, I won't be offended. So the way this is gonna go is we're gonna talk about like kind of career slash life, other hobbies, spooky, and sewing. Spooky we'll talk about when she shows up. Oh, did you decide to loaf and take a nap under the couch? Yeah, she's looking not so lively right now. We just got back from the vet, which I will give you an update on that when we get to that section. But yeah, we're starting with career life. What is your day job, and do you foresee continuing in that particular industry, or do you think you're going to try to grow your channel to the point where you could potentially do this full-time instead of a regular job? This is a great question. I'm trying to also, while I do this, sort out. A subscriber sent me a ton of metal zippers. Thank you, Jennifer. And then I also grabbed all the loose zippers in my stash. And the reason I don't use my loose zippers as opposed to my package zippers is because they're not sorted into size. So my goal today is to get these sorted into sizes. But anyway, about my day job, I am a UX designer, which is a user experience designer. I work for a financial tech company. It's like not the most interesting job, but it's more interesting than most other jobs out there to me. I enjoy it, and honestly it pays good money. I do not ever plan on my channel being my full-time job for a few different reasons. One is like, for me to have this channel make a full-time income, I would either need to go like the Patreon route, like closet historian. That's just not gonna pay as much as my day job pays. Or I would have to take sponsorships, and few companies meet the scrutiny I have of them. For me to have a company sponsor me, I ask them first about like, what's your racial equity policy? Like, are you approaching Black influencers and then are you paying them equal to white? Or like, what's your environmental impact or your environmental plan? And after that, most ghost me. Most aren't interested in talking about ethics, so they don't work for me. And then, because the only sponsorship you've ever probably seen on this channel, that wasn't way back in the day. Way back in the day, I did take like free product for stuff. That's the other thing, is they want you to like do a whole video featuring their content, but they don't want to pay you. They just want to give you a free gift, which you have to pay taxes on, so it's not free. So no, and I honestly don't think that people need anyone selling them more stuff. I don't think more stuff needs to really exist just to exist. Like, I kind of think it's fine to make stuff, but I don't really want to talk people into buying new things, because I don't know, that's not what I want my job to be. I like my day job, and like I said, it pays enough. Having YouTube make that much money is not very likely for the way I want to like live my life and run my channel. The only sponsorship I took was that Elvis one, and it's because I was advertising a movie, which is an experience. I mean, yes, there are a bunch of other issues, and they let me talk about who Elvis actually was, like around the creepy factor with his wife and the fact he met her when she was a child. And they also let me talk about him appropriating Black culture. So that is the only reason I took that sponsorship, is they let me be me, and it's just so rare to find those sponsorships that it's like not particularly possible for it to be a job. And I want to be clear, this is no shade to people who it is their job. I'm in a very, very like luxurious, I feel like, position in the fact that my day job makes so much money, and that I also actually like my day job. So yeah, that's kind of the scoop on that. That was a long question, long answer. How do you manage time to do all these projects with your work and social activities? I feel like it takes me months to complete a single project. So there's a few ways I do this. One is my work pays me well under the market rate, if we're honest. If my boss is watching this, sorry, but it's true. And so as a result, they get 40 hours a week from me. They do not get more. If they were to pay me like more, they might get more work from me, but right now my work boundary is strictly, I'm okay with what you pay me because I work 40 hours a week and that's it. That said, I am what I would consider to be like kind of a workaholic. While I don't work for my job 24/7, I would say I work 24/7. If I am not spending that 40 hours a week on a job, I'm sewing, I'm editing, I'm running a blog, I'm doing other things. I'm not really a good rester, and I would say like out of my full like being awake day, I maybe rest, oh boy, like an hour and a half. And as for like balancing it with my social activities, my friends would laugh at you and say, what social activities? Haley's antisocial. And they would be correct. I a lot of times spend basically my whole weekends working on this channel because I enjoy it. It's something I'm passionate about, and also being in office 3 days a week really like wipes me out as far as like my social battery. And I like my coworkers, so I'm okay with that. My ideal world would be a fully remote job, but that's not where I'm at right now in my career, and that's okay. I will hopefully get there one day. I don't really have a social life. I see friends consistently on Tuesdays, and then sometimes I go to the theater once a week. And then I try to do one other social related thing, but a lot of times I make my friend come to me and we like cook and watch TV while I sew. So nothing wild. I want to know if you're single, just want to hear about dating, what type of human are you looking for, dating and things like that. So I am open to dating, but not on the apps, which makes it kind of hard because I am said hermit. I would really like to meet the right person, so I'm trying to do it through kind of like queer networking and going to like queer events or crafting events. The person I'm looking for values the things I value. Also, like, some of that is also like financial. I want similar financial values with whoever I end up with because that's a lot of times what makes or break a marriage from the people I've talked to. And aside from finances, I want them to really value creativity and having creativity in my life. I don't care if they have the same hobbies as me, but I want them to be curious and I want them to be a lifelong learner, things like that for me. I want them to be kind and compassionate and like care about other people. These all feel kind of low bars. And then I do not see myself with a cis man. I'm pretty much open to anything but a cis man at this point. I just have met very few cis men who value things similar to how I value, and I've met a lot of femmes, non-binary, and trans men who do. So for me right now, cis men are out of the equation unless they're a specifically amazing one. Also, I'm so in the queer community at this point that I need somebody in a relationship to understand queer culture, and quite frankly, very few cis men do. I have dated, the last cis man I dated was really, really lovely, and I kind of want to go out on that really, really lovely note because the rest of my experience dating cis men was such garbage. So that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at on dating. Right now, my friends are having what they're calling their hot girl summers, and we're going a route of if they go on a date with somebody who they don't connect with but they think I would connect with, they'll ask the person if they want to be referred to me. So that's what I'm trying right now because I cannot do the apps again. I will die alone before I go on a dating app again. Do you bleach and or color your own hair? What products do you use? So I go into the hairstylist for when I bleach it. I'm terrified of the bleaching process, but I do touch up and like subtly change my colors myself. I use Joico products. Well, so the salon uses Pulp Riot. I use Joico at home. Joico has been my ride or die for like, oh god, how many years? Almost a decade. So I use them, yeah, at home. I like have no problem if you want to do your hair yourself at home, do it. I just, like I said, I personally am terrified of bleaching my hair off, so I'm not gonna do that. Next question, would you ever go to Australia for a visit? My goal before I die is to go to every continent except for Antarctica. I have no interest in being that cold. I mean, I guess if global warming really changes things, I could maybe put Antarctica back on my list, but I really hope that's not the state we're headed for. So yeah, but I will say Australia is bottom of my list. I'm hopefully going to South America this fall, and then next year, if I can find the right people to travel with and the right place to go, I would really like to visit somewhere in Africa. Haven't quite decided where. I'm very conflicted on the type of like Africa country I want to visit. I think I want to visit a textile hotspot and see if I can take any workshops or classes there. But Australia is just kind of low on the list because I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like Australia is going to feel kind of similar to my culture here, and traveling 20 plus hours to experience something similar to my own culture doesn't really stack high on my list, but it is on my list. Honestly, I'd be more likely to spend most of my time near or on that continent in either New Zealand and or Tasmania. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't have that much interest in Australia. I'm sorry. I know who commented this and I think you're wonderful, but I do not have much interest in Australia. Thrifting / other hobbies. What's your favorite category of items to rummage through at thrift stores? That's a really hard question. It kind of depends on my mood. I always check most sections because that's just how you have the most luck thrifting. Probably the raw materials section, craft sections, and then I love looking through dresses even though I hardly buy any anymore. Ooh, this is fun. It's like a little America zipper. What's your most gasp because you couldn't believe it find? So I no longer own this find. I did end up eventually selling it because I held onto it for a long time because it was such an amazing find. But I found a authentic gunny sacks with a unicorn print at a thrift store for $13. I was super excited. So I bought it and I kept it for years. I never wore it because it didn't really actually fit me well, which is funny because I think it would fit my current weight well. But that's okay. It wasn't really my favorite cut. So I ended up selling it, I think, just a year ago for about $250, which is a crazy high profit margin. Even though it's a dress that's valued most likely over $1,000, I wanted to basically pass on my savings to somebody else in a way, which I know $250 is not cheap, but most vendors would have offered this dress for like $1,200, and I wanted to give it the opportunity to be in someone's collection who maybe normally couldn't afford something like that. What's your favorite era for vintage clothing and housewares, and why? This is a cop-out, but I don't have a favorite era. There's different things I love about each era. Clothing up until the 80s, I like some 90s clothes too. And the Y2K stuff is growing on me, even though I remember it the first time round. And then housewares, I don't really like post-70s housewares that much. I don't really like the 80s and 90s vibes don't super do it for me. Some pottery you made. This will maybe get Spooky's attention to come on over here, but one of the big things, oh, I did not do a good job cleaning this. I've been making Spooky's food bowls. This one has some mountains and is like blue speckled inside. I'm really proud of this one. And then I don't know if I've already showed this before, but I made this little tripod cat dish with pottery. And then the other one I made, this is her water bowl. It's yellow on the inside and has sunshine and clouds on it. None of these are like particularly finely made pottery, because pottery for me is about being a social hobby, not about being a hobby I'm particularly amazing at. That said, I've been getting kind of more inspired on pottery again, which brings me to what kind of pottery would you like to make in the future? I would really like to make like a cute decorative teapot at some point in the future. But I really like making things that look like other things. I just finished a vase that looks like kind of a hilltop village that I'm pretty excited about as well. What kind of music do you listen to? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really listen to music. If I do, it's Taylor Swift. Don't shame me, don't roast me. I know she's a problematic fave. What are your favorite types of movies? Don't super watch movies. Do you have any favorite shows? Now, we can talk shows. I love reality TV. I watch all the 90 Day franchise. I watch all the trashy dating reality TV. I'm obsessed with The Bachelor. I watch The Bachelor the way other people watch sports. If you are in the pit, let me know. I would love to know if there's any fellow vintage sewer pit dwellers. If you know, you know. Any of the I really liked F-Boy Island. Then I also watch like Criminal Minds. I watch a lot of different shows. I like competition shows as well. I will say Great British Bake Off didn't do it the best for me, but I have gotten a VPN so I can watch Great British Sewing Bee, and if you haven't watched that and you know how to work a VPN, that is your homework assignment. I have been so inspired by that recently. Can't believe it took this long for me to learn it was out there. And why did you stop your intro with the buttons? Was the last question on that. Honestly, it's because the algorithm, the first 30 seconds of your video is really important, and I don't want to take up any of that time with an intro. Intros just seem to have kind of gone on the wayside, but honestly, I wasn't that excited about that intro anymore either. I had been using it for 2 years. Now we're to the Spooky question, so I want to get Spooky over here, but before I go get her, quick health update on Spooky. Some of you who know I adopted her as an elderly cat with a kidney disorder. So we've been going through a little bit of stress the past few months. About 3 months ago, we found some nodes in her lungs and have been waiting to find out if it's cancer. The good news is it is likely not cancer based on the x-rays we just got back today. The nodes are smaller, and she's also missing her bladder stone now, so she doesn't have to do that surgery. So she's actually looking pretty good. I get the blood work back next week. If I have anything to report back, I'll update that in the comment below. But I'm feeling really good about her health. Come here, little spunky. Because I didn't honestly know if I would have her for much longer 3 months ago with the potential cancer. Come here, baby. I was feeling very, very stressed today, and I was waiting to film this video till after I had news, because the other kind of stressful part about that is I just didn't, honestly, I didn't know how to tell you guys. So now this is me telling you that there's nothing to worry about. More spooky conquests. Let me go get her. She's being a little butt. She's looking out the window. Hi, baby. Your fans want to see you. I believe one of the questions was, show me the baby. I'm sorry, I touched your butthole. I'm very unhappy, and I'm sure you are. She's kind of cranky from being at the vet today, but the vet loves you. She was so wriggly for her blood draw that she took 3 people to pin her down, because she might be tiny, but she is fierce. Here you go. She's gonna mess up all my sorting, but I want her front and center. So Spooky's favorite things beside flowers, how old when you got him or her? Geez, I don't even know. So Spooky is a girl, I guess, if gender matters. Kind of like that her name is genderless because I like watching people feel very baffled by her pronouns, and it cracks me up. I got her 2 years ago when she was probably 10. She was in pretty rough shape when I got her, so I've been quite pleased at her health. Yeah, she's causing chaos, but it's worth it. Hi, dear little girl. She's been the best cat ever, and I'm so thankful I got her. I have a whole video about her adoption story that I can link. Ow! Kitten pictures, I wish. I'm debating whether it would be funny for this video to generate some AI spooky kitten pictures. And can a day of the life in the life of Spooky vlog happen? Maybe. It will probably be a short. She's not that interesting. Kind of just sleep and snuggle and eat and drink all day. So that's it for our Spooky segment. And she did, as predicted, destroy all my zipper organization. So what can you do? But I'm just gonna pet her. Do you have another YouTuber that inspires you, whether it be sewing or otherwise? So the first channel that I feel like inspired my style of sewing video was Angela Clayton. She's not super active on here anymore, but definitely check out her back catalog. I just found her videos very informative and entertaining at the same time. They're much longer and more in-depth than mine. On sewing, I really like Mina Lay. She does some social commentary videos, and so does Salem Tovar, who I also watch. This community is pretty small, so I know a lot of these other YouTubers I'm about to mention. My favorite is anytime somebody comments something down below, like kind of clearly shading another YouTuber in this space, like we don't know each other and know who you're talking about, and like we aren't all talking about you in our group messages. Along that line, love Stephanie Canada's channel, So Drew, Serena, I'll link everybody down below. Closet Historian, Lopsy, Rachel Maxey, she's pretty big, so you've probably already heard of her, but I feel like it would be silly to not mention her because I do watch her and I do like her videos. She's one of the only people who I would say her, Mina Lay, and Salem Tovar are probably the three that like I wait for their videos to come out. Jennifer Elise, Cat Young Creates, and My Happy Tati, when they do projects, they're always really interesting. Those are some old Redbird friends. With Love Christina, she does some like decluttering videos that are very relaxing, and now that she's kind of decluttered a lot, I'm curious to see what she decides to do with her channel, and I'm pretty excited because I think she's feeling ready to like make her channel what she wants it to be, not to put words in her mouth. I also have on this list Beverly Butterfly. She's a pretty small channel. She does a lot of thrifting hauls, and she's out of the UK, which is just always interesting to see somebody with similar hobbies to you in a different country. Oh, and the last is Bianca Bowman, is one I found recently, and her stuff is so fun. She does a lot of crochet on her channel, but she also does sewing, and I find her work really inspirational. And she also does her channel in a bilingual manner. She usually puts out either both a Spanish and then a separate English video, or she mingles them together, and I just think that's really cool, and then I can use it to brush up a little bit on my Spanish as well. Not that my Spanish is that great to begin with. Would love a tutorial on like how you finish the inside of your garment. So I mention those in videos. I'm probably never gonna do like a here's a tutorial on how I do that type of thing, because I would not say I'm a tutorial channel. I would say like you kind of learn things from me as you watch all of my projects, but I don't really have an interest in being more of a tutorial channel. I think there's plenty of YouTubers that kind of have that covered, such as like Evelyn Wood, right? She has a lot of videos that are going to be more helpful and that are already out there than things I could make. Sorry, I'm resorting literally everything before Spooky came. And kind of similar to that, would you ever create videos of tips and tricks you've learned through your sewing journey? And the answer to that again is no. I'm just not interested in making those types of videos. So those videos perform really, really well in the almighty algorithm. But they're so boring for me to make. I would rather show you me making something and you be able to maybe pick up some tips for that. I don't know how to say this, but like my content is for you and not for you at the same time. Like a lot of the reason I have my channel is like self-motivated. I'm super sensitive and stick to cotton, but it can change look or design. So the other thing I would really recommend if you don't know like your fabric types is if you can make it to a fabric store, do that. But if not, order a bunch of different swatches, because just because you need cotton for your skin sensitivity, which like I totally get, I have sensory issues that make certain fabrics off limits for me. One of the things you can do is you can line something with cotton and use a different fabric, or there's so many different types of cotton. There's cotton lawn, there's dobbies, there's shirtings, there's just all sorts of cotton because they're weaved differently, right? So you can still pretty much get any look that you want with cotton if you can find the right weave of cotton. And that's where someone maybe like Evelyn Wood and maybe the Closet Historian might be helpful. Do you ever draft your own patterns / recreate clothes you see? Honestly, not often. I have been getting more into what they call pattern hacking, which is where you take an existing pattern and you kind of like adapt it to fit your vision. I've been doing that more and more, especially around like zippers. Most old clothing, the zippers are on the side, which for me, getting through a garment with a side zipper is really hard on my shoulders functionally, and I have basically a big chain I can attach to my zipper to pull my zipper up by myself without the fear of getting stuck. I already make a bunch of changes to patterns, and then I would say like I've definitely hacked some of the patterns I've made for gunny sacks. I've hacked a few other patterns for different sleeves and stuff, and I do have an interest in eventually learning how to draft. I would just say like I haven't reached the point where I'm advanced enough to want to do that. Like I think there's just, you have to be pretty skilled, I think, to work your way up to that. And I do plan to one day be one of those people. Wow, a metal-toothed invisible zip. That's pretty cool. Am I frightened by that? Yes, absolutely. I don't know. I feel like I'm more inspired by fabrics than anything else anyway. And usually I can find a pattern that I want to make with a fabric. Favorite shops to get fabric, both in person and online. In person, now that I have discovered they have a pretty decent selection, I go to Pacific Fabrics first, which is in like the industrial district in Seattle. So that's who I check first. Second, I check Style Maker Fabrics, who are a couple hours north, but their delivery is pretty fast. And then I can put a more complete list, but like Firecracker Flat Fabrics, Blackbird Fabrics. I do go to Mood, but Mood's kind of more of like a last resort because their services and shipping are super slow. And also they're a pretty big company that's owned by men, and there's so many women in the fabric world that I just see no reason to buy from a man-owned business. And if you read their Glassdoor reviews, it seems like it doesn't feel good to work as an employee there. Fabric Mark's another that I order from fairly regularly. I'm trying to think who else. Josephine's Dry Goods in Portland. There's Mills End in Portland. When I can, I really prefer, like, find your local fabric shops. It's just so much better to touch and feel the fabric if you can. And then once you, like, establish a relationship with a sewing shop, you kind of know, like, what they bring in. Like, with Style Maker Fabrics, I've been into her shop enough that I know that literally everything she brings in is high quality, that I just trust basically ordering from her store. So yeah, I would say like find local stores that are locally in small business and get to know them, make relationships with them, and you won't need to find or order from any of these big fabric stores. I try not to shop at, well, I definitely don't shop at Hobby Lobby, but I also try to minimize my Joann's and Michael's just because they're big corporate conglomerates. And the more you can keep your money in your local businesses, the more money stays in your local economy, and like the less goes to billionaires. So that's kind of my philosophy, is the smallest business I can buy from is where I'm gonna buy, even if they don't offer free shipping. It would be great to hear more about your pattern collection. My pattern collection is very expansive. I don't know if people would actually be interested in videos going through my pattern collection because I feel like I show everything that I bring in my haul videos, but I would say I probably have like 200-ish patterns, most of them from pre-80s. I would say even, yeah, pre like 1980. And I just pull from it. I showed you how I organize my patterns in a recent like sewing area tour, so check that out if that's what you're looking for. Would you consider pattern design and creating your own pattern label? No. You can get a degree in doing stuff like that, and I didn't, and I had a roommate who did, and it looks not very fun. Like I talked about previously, I don't really want this to be my full-time job. It's never gonna pay as well as my full-time job or have as good of benefits as my full-time job. So, like, not really. What made you start sewing and start a channel? So that's like two different questions. So I started my channel back when I had opened these Redbird vintage boxes because I watched a lot of other people's unboxings and I just found them very inspiring and fun. And so I did kind of like more of an unboxing and haul style channel for a while, but then I just found myself consuming more than I wanted to, because even when you're consuming secondhand, you can still overconsume. So I started to try to pivot my channel to making things. I still overconsume often. Actually, I guess I didn't buy any of these. These are all gifts, but still. I am still prone to over-consuming, but you can only over-consume kind of so much when you have to make the things. As for what inspired me to start sewing, I started sewing when I had more free time after college, and what inspired me is just a huge part of it is learning more about the type of labor conditions garment workers work in. I didn't want to contribute to that system anymore, and I had the time and privilege not to. And I started sewing way back in the day. My mom's probably so sick of me telling this story. Sorry. But back in the day, I wanted to learn how to sew, and my mom insisted I start with pillowcases, and so I did not keep sewing very long because I found it so boring. So if you're gonna start sewing, start with something you actually want to make. Even if you make something horrendously ugly, you'll at least be engaged and want to do it. That would be my recommendation. I notice you don't do mock-ups on most of your sewing projects. Do you not because you figured out your size and vintage patterns, or do you just feel confident to sort it out as you go? So a couple answers to this. I do know my vintage pattern size. I also know where my fit issues are, so I kind of adapt for that without always talking about it. And then the last thing that I've started doing as I've had more weight fluctuating is before I cut out the pieces, I measure, I don't want to call them problem points because that's not the way I feel about them, but the things that don't work with the patterns. So I've identified those and I double check those measurements, and if those measurements don't work with what my size is, I then add whatever amount I need to then make it a fitting garment. So that is kind of what I do, and I've been slowly decluttering the patterns in my collection that are too small for me and that take like an actual grading type deal. Wow, this is such a big zipper. This is probably for like a pair of pants or something, but giant. Actually, it's closed at the top. It's probably more for a pocket. Super fun though. This has been a delightful collection to sort through. Have you inspired work colleagues to start sewing their own clothes too? Not so much work colleagues as probably friends. And then the other thing I've done is I don't really sew for other people. I actually don't know if this question got put on here, but someone asked if I like sewing for other people. No. Sewing is for me purely a hobby and a selfish thing. So if somebody asks me for like a mending help or a mending project, I make them do it with me and I teach them how to do it, and I make it clear that's the only time I'm doing it. So I am passionate about teaching other people how to mend their clothes like in real life. I'm honestly not interested in doing this channel. This channel is for me and it is for fun, and that does not sound like a fun channel to me, but I do enjoy teaching people in real life kind of how to do certain things. And I would say I definitely have had friends who sew more than they used to because of me, but I don't know if I really feel like I've inspired someone to like fully pick up sewing, if that makes sense. How did your sewing journey begin? So my sewing journey began in October of 2019. I decided that year that I was going to learn how to sew, and I started by making all of my family's Christmas presents. I quilted a whole bunch of like laptop what do you call them? Laptop sleeves, that's what I'm looking for. And I also made some oven mitts and some like charging cord holders. All of them I'm sure are horrendous and I wouldn't want to look at the craftsmanship now, but that was highly ambitious, so I got all those done in October and November and December of 2019. I was good enough that I felt like I could pursue making my own clothes, so I started into that journey in January of 2020. That's actually when I started my channel, and then the pandemic happened, things shut down, and I found a lot of time to learn and teach myself how to sew. So that's kind of, I guess, my sewing journey origin stories. Coincidentally coinciding with the pandemic, not just because of the pandemic. What do you do to get yourself motivated before a sewing session? Anything you do to get yourself in the mindset for sewing? So there's a few things I do. The first thing I do, which I have mentioned on this channel, is I meal prep. When I'm sewing, I don't want to have to deal with my human needs. I don't know how else to say it. So I have all my meals prepped so I can basically sew, feel a little bit hungry, have food right away that will nourish my body, and then sew some more. And how do I get myself in the mindset? Spooky, don't throw up in my shoe. I don't know, sewing helps to stress me, so I feel like I'm regularly in the mindset. If I'm not in the mindset for sewing, I take a few days with no sewing intentionally, and then usually I'm ready to turn back to it. And if I'm not still, after all of that, motivated to sew, I find a audiobook or podcast I want to do a deep dive in, and I need something to do while I listen to them, and sewing works for that. So that's kind of what I would say. How do you stay energized to keep creating? As I previously mentioned, I'm kind of a workaholic, so I don't really know what to do with myself if I'm not making stuff. I like to say this is like autism's superpower, is I feel like everybody has, like, all the autistic and neurodivergent people I know have like their biggest symptom of their neurodivergence, and mine is hyperfocus. I can hyperfocus and hyperfocus and hyperfocus and fixate and fixate and fixate. And one of the biggest reasons that like I meal prep and I talk about that is because like I'm the type of person who I get and I make and I'm so committed. I don't eat, sleep, drink, pee. So that's just like kind of how I'm wired. And the other thing that keeps me energized, as much as I just like went on a rant about how this channel is for me, I do actually very much adore this community I've built. It inspires me that I inspire you. I get a lot of comments saying like people find my work inspiring, and I just find that really motivating. And this is like, my channel is kind of like some self-accountability nonsense. Basically, like, I've committed to putting out a sewing video every other week, which means I have to be sewing enough to put a sewing video out every other week. So you guys kind of keep me on track and keep me motivated, and my channel gives me the opportunity to like actually like reflect and kind of do like a retrospective on my process. And it's just been really, really nice, and I really appreciate it, and I am very, very thankful for this platform and this channel, and for all of you who are here. And man, if you made it to this part, you're really committed, and I see you. What are your dream makes to create in the future is where I wanted to end. This is where I'm going to say, like, I feel like a lot of sewers are inspired by like, things they see out in the world. I feel like we've established this, but I'm not very much a pop culture or like fashion girly or like fantasy girly. So as a result, I feel most inspired by the fabrics that I come across. Like, usually it's that I see a fabric and I think I must make something with that fabric, and then I fixate on what I want to make with that fabric. So for example, coming up should be like my fun holographic fabric I found that I feel inspired to make for a queer wedding. And I have, I think this is coming out before my Pride video, I have that rainbow fabric. I want to make something for Pride. I have like the carroty, or I guess strawberry, I learned they were strawberries. This strawberry fabric from Korea that I'm super excited to make something with. So I just would say like fabric inspires me the most. And fabric inspires me way more in person than it does online. So that's kind of how I have my makes. I also have that beautiful silk I picked up while in Thailand. There is nothing like that silk. It is so thick and high quality. So yeah, that's kind of my dream makes, I guess, is some fabrics I own. I don't aspire to really dress or look like or make anything like anybody else very often. I mean, you have seen things definitely that I have made based on pieces, and what I would say is that's usually like designer pieces that are vintage that I just can't afford. Like, well, right now gunny sacks have actually fallen in value a little bit, so gunny sacks are a little bit more in my reach. Stuff like that, like the rainbow overalls that I made, like that's definitely inspired by vintage. And right now I just don't have any of those pieces in my head. I've become a good enough seamstress that like once I'm inspired by something, it's pretty easy for me to just do the thing and make the thing. So that's a lot of times what I'm doing. That goes to the end of the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's definitely very long and rambly, so forgive me for that. And again, huge, huge, huge thank you for 6,000 subscribers. But this is, usually I do this for a bonus video, but this is my video for the week. I guess if you're at the end and you're not a subscriber, I am shook. Subscribe and stick around. If you enjoyed this video, you should enjoy the rest of my content. I post every single Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and I will see you then. Bye!